I am Brittany Riley with the University of Texas at Tyler, and I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about graduate school in the United States, what it looks like, especially right now during COVID. Some of the, I heard OPT and CPT. I'll talk a little bit about that and funding as well, admission requirements, just kind of an overview of what graduate school in the US can be like in case you're not familiar with how it works, or you're just getting started on the process. Hopefully this will give you some more information just to get started. I invite all of you to ask me questions or give me feedback in the chat. I have it open and I am happy to dive into any topics in more depth with you, or answer any questions that you may have as we go through. So feel free to engage with me directly through the chat. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So when you're choosing a university in the US, it's really easy to say, I want to go to a top ranked university. But in the United States, we don't have a uniform ranking system for our schools. There are tons and tons of options to choose from. And so if you were looking at top ranked universities online, or if you just typed in, something along those lines, you are going to find a bunch of different websites, all with different information about, like, each list would have a different university as number one. And that's because they're all looking at different criteria. Some of them are not super trustworthy, like they maybe have a college would pay to be on that list or something like that. So it can be difficult to search for a school in that way. If you're just getting started looking for universities, I recommend using US News and World Report. That website is legitimate. They do use genuine ranking metrics. But what you'll find on that website is that they are still using a bunch of different categories. So it's not going to be just one list. It'll be several different lists, and each of them would say, like, number one university with a hockey team, or top online business schools. It's still going to be very, very specific. So just know that going into it is there's no one answer for top universities in the US. It's just not the easiest way to find the best value in a school. Something to definitely look for, though, when you are looking for a school is accreditation. This is one of the most important things that you should be considerate of when choosing a school. There are two legitimate types of accreditation that you should be looking for, either a regional or a national accreditation. So I'm going to talk about programs that may be offered in just a minute. And program accreditation, something specific to your industry. So for example, ABET for engineering programs, or KCREP. I don't know there's so many acronyms. I'm not exactly sure what all of those stand for, but those are specific to your program. And that's great. You want that. That's awesome. But also make sure that the entire university is accredited either nationally or regionally. And that's going to ensure that an employer or an additional degree program, like say if you wanted to do a PhD after your master's degree, choosing a regional or national accredited school will make sure that whatever you do next accepts your degree. So that's very important. Okay, so I am not able to tell you, because again, like I said, the best school for you really, really depends on exactly what you want to do. What is your priority? Are you looking for research? Are you looking for career? And I'm going to talk about those as well, but it is impossible for me to tell you this is the best school for you. Now, some of the programs that the University of Texas at Tyler offers specifically, we have currently 5 different colleges within the university. And a college is just a grouping of similar programs. So I know that can be confusing as well if you think a college and a university are 2 different institutions, but within a university, there are several smaller colleges with groupings of programs. So we have our arts and sciences, our College of Business, um, education and psychology, nursing and health sciences, and College of Engineering. So I point these programs out specifically to let you know that you will see colleges within a university, groupings of programs, and that is going to be pretty normal. You may also see School of this or someone specific's name on top of it. That's all very normal to see. Also, I want to point out that the programs that I've presented here for all of these colleges in both of my slides are only programs that offer an F1 visa. UT Tyler actually has a lot more programs than this, especially in health and education, but they do not support international students because they're entirely online. So when you're looking for a school and you see a program that you're interested in, make sure that they consider international students as well if you want an F1 visa, or if you're open to studying online, especially now with COVID, travel can be difficult. A lot of international students aren't confident leaving home right now just because you don't know what's going to happen. And so a lot of schools, there's no issue with an international student studying online from their home country. So if that's interesting to you as well, see if that's an option. But just make sure that you're asking those kinds of questions and making sure that the program that you're choosing at the school is offering exactly what you need. And I encourage you to do all of that research before you actually apply. So usually there's application fees, just the cost to submit the application, not even anything else. And so make sure you're asking these questions because it's always unfortunate when we have someone apply and pay the fee and then it's like, you can't do that program, I'm so sorry. So make sure you're asking those questions. But that's my advice for choosing a program that's going to be a good fit for you, okay? So, as I mentioned already, but just to reiterate, you want to focus on your career and research goals as well when you're choosing a program. Choose a school that offers what you want to do. If you are looking to be a researcher and get a PhD, choose a school that has a robust research option, and that list from U.S. News and World Report will certainly help you narrow that down. If your focus is getting a really good job, taking out an internship with CPT, or working in the U.S. on OPT after graduation, make sure that that university has a career services office or something like that that will help you prepare for the U.S. job market. So it's all very important making sure that that school is going to help you reach your goals, because ultimately, you know, besides the experience and having fun and traveling and doing something new, you should be growing and really learning a lot more than just your classroom work. So make sure that the school aligns you with your future goals and is going to help you get there. So be flexible. Be flexible segues us into our next point, which is the admission requirements. I wish there was something easy and straightforward I could say here about admission requirements, but it is just going to be different everywhere you go, especially right now with COVID. So many of the normal things that I would talk about with admission requirements could be different. It's really, you really got to ask questions, really got to look at the website and make sure that you're getting all of the answers before you get started. So for example, some different things that you may see with universities are some will allow you to upload scanned documents during the application process and will proceed with a decision. Some schools require official documents, like UT Tyler, for example. We require all officials up front. Even during COVID, though a lot of universities may have changed that right now due to COVID. We always need undergraduate transcripts, and I think that will be the same for any school that you go to. International transcript evaluations, this is what helps us determine the comparability of your degree and your grades to the US scale. That can be something that your school that you're applying to will do internally. It could be something where they require you to get an external evaluation from a third-party company, which is UT Tyler. We require an external evaluation. We reimburse you the cost of the fee. Some schools may not do that. It really just depends. Some schools may not require one at all. In fact, we have programs that require one, and then we have some programs that don't at all. So it really depends on what's going on there. Language exam scores, we accept TOEFL, IELTS, PTE, which is the Pearson test of English, and the Duolingo English test, which is new. A lot of schools have started accepting that Duolingo English test because it's very accessible. Some don't. It just, again, it really depends. And then, of course, the minimums are going to be different every school. In fact, within our one university, several programs have different minimums. Like our psychology and counseling programs, for example, have a higher minimum because the primary role of that type of field is talking to people. So GRE, GMAT, or MAT, those are entrance exams not related to language proficiency. And of course, those minimums are going to vary by university, vary by program. Some will have waivers, same with the language exam. Some will have waivers, some will not. So all of this to say, don't assume that one thing that one university is doing will be the same at another university, but it doesn't hurt to just ask and see. Make sure there's no waiver available. Maybe they didn't have one listed, or maybe something has changed due to COVID, and you could save yourself some time and money of sending those scores or taking the test altogether. So just ask those questions. And then, of course, letters of recommendation, statements of purpose, interview, background check, all of these different types of things could be everywhere. Some programs don't need them at all. Some programs do. Just depends. So again, be flexible, ask questions, make sure you know what you're getting into before you spend that money to apply. And I don't know if, I get emails a lot from students here in the admissions office saying, I'm so sorry, but I have another question. Why are you sorry? That is my job. I'm here to answer your questions. I am literally employed to help you. So don't ever hesitate to ask more questions. If you're getting a weird vibe that someone is not happy to answer your questions, it's probably not a good sign for that university. They should be more than happy to make sure that you are confident in the choice that you're making with that school. So keep that in mind. So I'm going to move on quickly to one of the biggest topics when it comes to choosing the right school. Because overall, if you find the best school for you and you meet all of the admission criteria and you're so excited about it and you can't afford it, then it doesn't really matter if that school is perfect. So at the end of the day, all of that stuff being said, affordability, being able to secure funding if you need it, or being able to choose a school that is cost efficient for you is one of the most important factors in choosing a school. And this, I'm going to talk in depth about this. I'm going to spend some time here, and I encourage you guys again to ask me questions if you have them, because this can be really confusing. It's confusing for domestic students too, so I can only imagine it must be super confusing for someone who's not used to any of it. So foremost, just because a school costs more does not mean it's a better quality. Obviously, you know, if the different states in the United States, many of them have different costs of living. For example, California and New York, very expensive places to live. And so they have to pay their staff more, and they have to pay more in utilities to keep the buildings open and maintained. And those costs trickle down to the students, and those schools can be more expensive because of that. It doesn't mean that their education is any better, it just means it's really expensive to keep the building running. I would hope that those schools also offer more in funding opportunities to make it accessible to everyone. But in case you're not familiar with the different types of funding, I think the most, yes, I'm putting my email address in the chat just in case if anyone needs to hop off or anything like that and you have questions, feel free to email me anytime, and that will be at the end of the presentation as well, just in case someone else needs it. But common types of funding that I'm sure everyone is aware of is scholarship, especially a institutional or an internal or a university scholarship. Those ones that the school is giving you to come there, easy. There's also external scholarships available, and these are not quite as talked about, but there are lots of communities, organizations, businesses that want to fund students' study. Like, I don't know, but like Amazon, Walmart, Nike, companies that you recognize will often have a scholarship program. So look for those. There could be something out there for you. Just make sure you're choosing an organization that you recognize and you trust. There are scams out there as well to take advantage of students in need. So rule of thumb, if it's a company you don't recognize, do some research, may not be legitimate. If they want you to pay to apply for their scholarship, that's not right either. You shouldn't be paying to get free money. That's not how it works. So explore those. This is a good question in the chat real quick. Graduate school applications start in fall. Just so you guys know, I know that is fall semester is the most common, but a lot of universities accept new students in the spring as well with no penalty. I've had students say to me that they think that if you begin in the spring, you won't have opportunity for funding. At UT Tyler, that's not the case. Our fall and our spring students are equally treated as far as their opportunity, and a lot of other universities may be that way as well. But the question is, many of you may not have your final transcript yet, like you're still finishing up your last class or your graduation ceremony or something hasn't been completed. At UT Tyler, most of our programs would still consider you for admission on a provisional level, which provisional admission for UT Tyler, there are no penalties for that. You can still apply for funding, no problems with the visa process for anyone that we've admitted so far. That's not been an issue for them. So it is still very possible for you to gain admission for the fall semester. For example, our fall semester deadline is our priority deadline for international students is April 30th, and that's for a student who wanted to apply for funding. We would recommend being admitted no later than April 30th. So there's still plenty of time, and a lot of universities will work with you. Some of them may not. Of course, like I said, everybody is different. If you're, looking at a very highly competitive specific program and they have to trim somewhere, they may not offer a provisional admission. But look around, do your research and see, because a lot of schools will work with you if your degree isn't conferred yet. So very good question. Keep them coming also. I love interacting with you guys because ultimately, I'm here to answer your questions, so if you've got more, feel free to throw them at me. But other types of funding that are very popular with graduate students are research assistantships and teaching assistantships, also called RA and TA positions. You guys may already be familiar with these, and every student always wants one of these. Not always, but they're very common and the second most common type of funding for a graduate student. These are competitive, and every university is going to do it differently. I don't know if I mentioned that already, but everybody is different. Some schools will admit you with a funding package, like you're admitted and we're offering you this. Some schools will want you to apply separately for those opportunities. So for example, UT Tyler, we would ask you to apply for scholarships, RATA positions, and all of these funding types actually after you are admitted, which is why our priority deadline is April 30th, because that gives you time to apply for funding and then get started on the visa process after that. At our university, RA and TA positions are managed entirely by the academic department. And very good question, what is the average wage for an RA or TA? It depends. A lot of universities may offer a full funding stipend that would either cover all of your tuition and fees or all of your living expenses. The next slide is gonna talk about tuition and fees versus cost of attendance. So just keep in mind, some of them may cover tuition and fees, some of them may cover cost of attendance, and I'll talk about the difference between those two. And some of them just offer a stipend or a wage. For UT Tyler, the average pay is about $3,500. And I'm going to talk about our costs as well and how much that is in just a moment. So I'll come back to that. But ours is about $3,500, which almost covers all of the tuition and fees. At some universities, that average could be much higher. I've seen research and teaching assistantships at UT Tyler, even with our average of $3,500, I've seen a $12,000 RATA position. So it really depends, because a lot of these are funded by faculty grants to help with their research. So if someone doesn't have a grant, they're paying you out of their operating budget and it can be much lower. Or if they have an amazing grant, then they're throwing money all over the place to get the best help for their research. On-campus jobs, I don't want to move forward without mentioning on-campus jobs, especially for those of you who, well, for everyone, honestly, but especially for those of you who are looking to do CPT or OPT. An on-campus job, in addition to the stipend, which, just in case anyone's wondering, the average wage for an on-campus job that's not an assistantship for a graduate student at UT Tyler, all of these little caveats, would be $10 to $15 per hour. But more important than the money, honestly, is getting the experience in a U.S. work environment. That is the most important part of an on-campus job. And many people don't realize how different the expectations are until they're starting the interview process for their first on-campus job. And then it's a high learning curve. And that's why I mentioned the career services offices are so important to help with that. But on-campus jobs can also be a really good source of funding and experience. And then loans and grants. Some international schools or students have access to these, some do not. But obviously I don't want to not mention it. Do your research and use your resources to see if there's something that you could possibly be eligible for in terms of federal government funding and those kinds of things as well. That also changes a lot in some areas. So don't want to move forward without mentioning it, because it's a massive, massive part of our domestic student funding, and it could be something that could be available for you as well. But let's dig into the cost, because I think we'll explore this in more depth when we get to the cost. There we go. This varies by program. I should just put that as the first thing on every single one of my slides. This is the cost for UT Tyler. These are the best estimates that I can provide. And then I'm going to look at our funding and how this relates. I told you we're going to dig into it in depth because, again, this is one of the most difficult parts of this to understand, kind of the most important. If you're paying a bunch of money, you want to understand what you're paying for. If you are asking a university to give you an exact number, often they will not be able to do that. Tuition and fees change each year. In the US, the federal government or the state government will set some of it, the school will set some of it, and either one of those parties could change something each year. And then the fees change. So it's very, very difficult to give an estimate in advance, especially when you're talking 2 years of study. It could change at any time. Usually it doesn't change by a lot, but it's impossible to give an exact number. So there are 2 types of fees, non-resident and resident. And as you can see, they're quite different, about 50% difference in between non-resident and resident. And as international students, by default, you'll be paying non-resident tuition, but you can get a resident tuition waiver to bring your costs down. And that's true for Texas schools. because the state provides waivers. If you're not looking to go to a school in Texas, ask the question, see what they have, see if there's any possibility. There's no harm in just asking. If they say, no, we don't have anything like that, okay, you haven't said anything wrong. You haven't asked anything that would make you, diminish your standing with that university. It's a very, very normal thing. So just ask. So important, these costs that I've provided here are just tuition and fees. These are not cost of living, which is your housing, your international health insurance, your books, your personal expenses like food and doctor's visits or medicine. All of these different things are separate from your tuition and fees, and those collectively are referred to the cost of living or your total cost to survive while you're a student there. Your bus fare or a bicycle or a car or whatever. Those would typically not be included, but those would be personal expenses, I would think. So these estimates that I've given are just tuition and fees paid to the university. Some schools will give you a per semester tuition and fees, per degree tuition and fees, per year tuition and fees, or per semester cost of attendance, per semester or per year cost of attendance, per degree cost of attendance. This can be packaged in so many different ways. So be sure you understand what the amount they've given you is paying for. If you thought it was going to be $16,000 total to be a student at UT Tyler for an entire degree, you'd be wrong, because you wouldn't be factoring in your health insurance or your housing, and then you'd be in trouble. Usually when you're getting the I-20, it will very clearly outline these costs for you and ask you for a bank statement. And so that process should make it more clear. But you don't want to wait until you're already getting the I-20 to realize that this school is not a good fit for you. So ask those questions in advance. And I also usually provide to our students their I-20 form, like with the estimates, that like pre-survey. I usually give that to them up front and say, this is how much you would need to show on your I-20, just to give them that that number, So I hope that helps. And then my last slide on funding, because I don't want to harp on it forever. We've got other important things to cover, but my last slide on funding is those averages that we talked about, at least again for UT Tyler. I wish I could give you an average for the US, but honestly, as I mentioned, everybody is so different. There are so many schools. Even if I was trying to give you a state average, when you actually went and started asking schools, you would find so much different information. So unfortunately, that's just something you're going to have to research and ask the schools that you're genuinely interested in attending. And I just encourage you to get started with one of those lists and start asking questions. And most importantly, start applying early. If you're interested in fall 2021, don't worry, you still have time. But if you are not quite ready to get started, this is still a really good time to start doing your research, because you've got a really broad pool to start narrowing down. So get started early if you can, just to give yourself the more relaxed experience. But to give you guys an idea of our funding, the only scholarship available to students in their first semester is $1,000, but it also offers that resident tuition waiver that I mentioned. So right immediately, you're saving 50% off your tuition and fees, plus $1,000 for that year to go toward the remainder of those tuition and fees. Yes, I would love to clarify that waiver. So basically, the waiver just says, if you, let's say, I'm going to simplify these numbers a little bit. Let's say one semester for a non-resident is $8,400. The waiver bumps you down. So it takes that amount and says, nope, you're not going to pay non-resident tuition. We're going to pretend that you're a resident. And instead of paying $8,400, you're going to pay $4,200. So you don't have to apply for this waiver, at least at UT Tyler. It comes as a benefit of receiving the scholarship. Just like that, boom, waiver there. You got it. You got the scholarship, you got the waiver, and your tuition and fees are immediately reduced by 50%. That is a state program. So the state of Texas offers that program to non-residents to try to get people to come here instead of staying in their own state. So the state of Texas is, marketing it cleverly to try to get you to choose Texas by offering this waiver. The same waiver or the same outcome, a resident tuition waiver, is available to someone who gets an RA in a TA position for 20 hours per week in their academic department. So again, if you were to receive that RATA position, immediately in-state tuition waiver. Your faculty that hired you would just fill out a form and say, I'm hiring this student for 20 hours per week, and submit it to our cashier's office, and they would reduce your bill down to that resident tuition rate, just like that. So the process of receiving it may be a little different at other universities. They may want you to confirm receipt or submit something, I'm not sure, but it should be fairly simple. And like I said, in the state of Texas, these waivers should be available at all public schools since it's a state waiver. And I'm sure other states have something like that as well. Your representative that you're working with should help guide you through this. Obviously, we want our students to take advantage of every opportunity that they're eligible for. They shouldn't be hiding it from you. So they should be helping you say, oh, you're going to get this. Don't worry, I'm going to take care of it. Just fill out this form and we'll get it applied. So you should be guided on all of this stuff. But yeah, just to give you the idea of how it works, it's part of that benefit of getting the scholarship, part of that benefit of getting the RITA position. A basic on-campus job, at least at UT Tyler, does not receive a waiver. There's no state waiver for that. But as I mentioned, it is still an exceptional opportunity to give you that experience, to work on your soft skills, communication skills especially, problem solving, and also just find out what the culture in a US work environment is like. So those things are all very important, even if you're working on research, especially if you're interested in CPT or OPT. An on-campus job can give you the skills to stand apart. So for RITA positions and scholarships, all types of funding, at UT Tyler, you apply separately for funding opportunities after you receive admission to your program. That will vary by university. I wish I could just give you a simple answer, but I don't know if you guys noticed, this is not simple. Some universities will give you a funding package all at once, and when they admit you, they'll say, congratulations, you've been admitted to this program, and we'd like to offer you a teaching assistantship with a stipend of $4,000 per year and a tuition waiver. It can be packaged either way. You can see it both ways. If you're applying to 4 schools, 2 of them will do it one way, 2 of them will do it the other. So just keep that in mind. But for UT Tyler, you could apply for the scholarship and the RITA or an on-campus job the same day that you're admitted. The only reason that our university requires you to be admitted first is because oftentimes we will have, for example, we may have 20 students email one faculty about funding, and 16 of them won't have the proper minimum TOEFL score, or won't be willing to take the GRE, or don't have the right bachelor's degree for that program. And so they're dedicating that time to those students and getting excited about having someone on their research team. And then it turns out they couldn't be admitted to the program at all. And so it was getting confusing for everyone. The faculty would get excited, the student would get excited, and then they'd have to be denied admission. And it wasn't seeming fair. So we limited it to only after you're admitted can you start on this. Yes, that question is accurate. our scholarship and our teaching and research assistantships can stack. So you could get both. So you would get 50% tuition waiver plus $1,000 plus 350 or 3,500, or whatever that stipend was. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less for an academic year. So yeah, that is exactly right. You could get all of it. That's a good summary. So I appreciate you sending that in the chat so everyone can kind of see that summary. I think research and teaching assistantships are usually hired per semester, actually, versus our scholarship. That $1,000 is per year. So for the one semester, it'd be $500. So I hope that makes sense. So it would be the tuition waiver plus 500 plus 3,500 for one semester. With the scholarship, you're guaranteed to get that second 500 because it's awarded per academic year. With the RITA position, you would have to see. That's it. Also important thing. RITA positions, I think they hire per semester. So you would have to check with your hiring faculty if it's going to be an ongoing position where you would get that same position every semester, or if it's a limited time thing. Like if their grant is running out in the spring, you may only have that position for 1 or 2 semesters. So check with your faculty if you're applying for these and see how long the position would last. It's another important thing as well. And I know that can be scary. It's like, well, I'm going to go to this school. What if my funding only lasts for 1 semester? What if I don't get funding again? Typically, or at least at UT Tyler, we offer renewals of the new graduate fellowship, and we also offer returning student scholarships so that you always have opportunity to apply for something. There's never a time when it's like, oh, well, you ran out, it's gone, now you're stuck. There's more opportunity to keep applying to make sure that you always have some sort of funding. And the RITA assistantships, those, as long as you're doing a good job, those usually the faculty are able to work with you on those. So yeah, I know this all can be scary and confusing, but I hope this helps give you an idea of what's going on. Very complicated world we have. Okay, it's 8:45, so I hope that helps. I'm going to go ahead and move on. I want to talk about some of the added benefits. I think my slides next are research. Okay, so I'm going to circle back around a little bit to choosing the best program for yourself. As I mentioned, if you're interested in doing research, choose a program that is going to, yes, Murray, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, Murray. Yes, this is all UT Tyler, but these concepts can be applied to any university. If you understand the differences of how it can be worded, what you may see, if you're looking at 10 different universities' websites, this will help you have a better understanding in general of what you may see there. So I'm using UT Tyler as an example, basically, to give you an idea of what this may look like at other universities, because it is so, foremost, it can be complicated, and secondly, because it varies everywhere. So I'm using UT Tyler as an example to dig into specific things you may see. But yeah, I recommend keeping a spreadsheet. And actually, I have a template of a spreadsheet for those of you who may be interested in applying for several different schools. I have a template that I would be happy to share with you to help you keep track of all of this stuff for a bunch of universities and help make your decision easier. So I'm going to actually, you know what I'm going to do? Let me pull that up for you. I'm going to pull up a survey and I'm going to send that to you all in the chat. If you would like a copy of that spreadsheet, just fill out this survey and I would be happy to send that to you. Or if you're interested in UT Tyler and want more information about our school, I'd be happy to send you more information. This survey will allow me to get your email address so I can reach out to you. You do not have to do this. If you are not interested, that is okay. But if you want to speak with me more about this, just fill out this survey for me if you don't mind, and I'd be happy to get back to you. Or if you just want to email me separately without providing your information, here's my email address again, so we can do that. But yeah, that may be helpful. Okay. But research, research is great. You're working as a part of a team. You're going to use a lot of your soft skills. The thing about research, we talked about OPT and CPT a little bit. You're going to, research is more than just knowing your topic and finding out more about your topic. Let's say you're civil engineering and you're studying different concrete materials for buildings. You're going to learn so much more doing research at the university than just the type of concrete that is best for buildings. You're going to learn to work as part of a team. You're going to learn to communicate, both spoken when you're working with your professor and telling them what you found, and written when you're trying to contribute to the actual paper. And you want to make sure that you're taking advantage of every opportunity at that university to maximize your skills to the fullest. So these are some things that UT Tyler offers: Grad School 180, East Texas Research Conference, ScholarWorks. ScholarWorks is a digital repository where all of our students' research is being broadcast to the world. So just put the link in the chat in case you're interested in that. You can see what our faculty are working on. You can see what our students are working on or what they've published. So this is great for you because you know what's going on at UT Tyler. These are downloaded from all over the world. This is also great because this means that if you were a student at UT Tyler, your research would be advertised worldwide. So these are some things that UT Tyler does to make sure that our students are taking advantage or maximizing their research skills. Alternatively, if you're focused on OPT, CPT, again, research is going to help you with those soft skills that you need for that. But we also offer a career preparation office, basically. Our Office of Career Success is 100% dedicated to making sure our students are the best employable people on the market and help you get the best job. They're going to do resume building workshops, career fairs. They have career success coaches that are specific to your college. So if you're in the College of Education and Psychology, that person is going to help you specifically for psychology jobs. So all of this, again, to say, if you're interested in career preparation, make sure the school has resources for you. Make sure you're ready. Take advantage of these from day one. The first day you arrive on campus, find your career success office, especially if you're interested in OPT and CPT. This is going to help you secure the best possible job and quick. If you wait until your last semester, you may not find something in time before your window runs out to apply and find something for your visa. So make sure you take advantage of this. The students that we've seen that have gotten the best jobs, the most prestigious companies with the highest pay, have taken advantage of these resources from day one. This is also great for your soft skills. You're going to learn a lot of things in the classroom, like I've talked about communication, all of these things. Our career preparation services will help you put those into words. It can be hard to say, I learned, analysis. What does that mean for an employer? The Career Services Office will help you summarize those things on a resume in a way that's really appealing to your employer. So keep all of that in mind. These are very important. I've covered a lot of information here. All of this to say, with the world of COVID and how things are right now, it can be tough. It can be very stressful, I think. The most important thing you do is ask questions and understand what's going on. It's going to be okay. It's, you guys are going to be taken care of. Make sure that there's a advocate for you on that campus. We have our Office of International Programs here at UT Tyler. They take care of our international students. They're the ones helping you with the I-20 process. They make sure you guys have food. They make sure that you're safe and you're taken care of and that your visa status is okay. They're taking care of you guys every step of the way. Your university should have something like that for you no matter where you go. But just make sure that you're asking those questions and you're meeting people, and make sure you feel safe and confident in your decision. That's the most important thing you can do. But it's going to be okay. It's going to work out. I have every faith that you guys are going to pick some really good schools and be successful, whether you want to do research or you want to get a job. You got this. If by chance you're interested in UT Tyler, of course, I welcome you to reach out to me. I would be happy to waive your application fee. I mentioned earlier that there's a fee just for signing up. I'd be happy to waive that for you guys just to help get you started. So if you are interested in that waiver, if you're interested in UT Tyler, again, please fill out this survey here in the chat. I'll repost it real quick for anyone who may have missed it. Please fill out that survey. I'd be happy to get back with you. But no pressure. My goal here, I know I used UT Tyler as an example, but my goal here is not to tell you that UT Tyler is the best. I may think it is, of course, because this is where I went to school, but you can use this information for any school. The COVID situation in the US, are admitted students allowed to enter the US and university campus? The short answer is yes, currently. There is a testing requirement currently. It just was implemented this month that before students can enter the US, or anyone can enter the US, they have to have negative test results. Let me see if I can find that article for us real quick. But as long as you have those negative test results, you can enter the United States. I just type in test in my inbox. I'm going to get 1 million results because every email I send is about the GRE test or something like that. But yeah, short answer is yes, you can. We did have even students who are able to get their visa and successfully come to campus physically this spring. So we had new students, new international students joining us from various parts of the world this month in January, and they were able to get here without a problem. If you're coming in August, which is when the fall semester begins, hopefully things are better. That's what we thought last year at this time, and it didn't work out that way. But we've still got a lot of months to see how things change. And as you guys know, you've been living through it, same as me. Things have been changing fast. So, but yes. Here's that article for anyone that may be interested. This article is directly from the Center of Disease Control, or the CDC. Any passenger flying to the US will need to provide negative COVID test results. So that's the only current restriction that I am aware of.